Hey everyone, Dottie Cool here, and I wanted to show you a card I just finished, and this was inspired by Tammy White at Stamp with Tammy, and it uses the used dryer sheets overlaid over your images, and it gives it a look of soft, fresh fallen snow. So I'll start with giving you the dimensions of the card. I used a set of cards and envelopes I got from Hobby Lobby, and the card itself is 5 by 6.5, and then I've already folded that. Then the blue mat is 4 3/4 by 6 1/4. So I've already cut out the pieces. So what I'm going to do is set those aside, and then the card that we'll use on top that we're going to be decorating is in white cardstock, and it's 4.5 by 6. And the first thing I want, and the other thing I've done, let me back up a minute, I did cut the snowman and the same image from the dryer sheet, and these are used dryer sheets. I used the Tim Holtz die Winter Wonderland, or Winter Wonder, that has the snowman on it, and then the corresponding embossing folder, Snow Flurries. I used the snowflake embossing too, and I embossed just the paper. When I cut this out, I put the dryer sheet on the die first, and then the cardstock over top of it, so that it just seemed like it would be easier to cut if I had it in that setup. So the first thing we want to do is we want to decorate our white mat, and I want to do that by using 3 different colors of ink, and I use the Distress inks. I use faded jeans. Half the time I call it faded denim. So you'll just have to overlook that. I don't know why, but it's stuck in my mind that it should be denim. Broken china and tumbled glass. And I've pulled, just from my collection, I've pulled 3 or 4 different sizes of snowflakes. Whatever you have on hand will work. You just want at least 3 different sizes. I'm using the Fisker's compact stamp press. I just purchased this, and I've only used it a couple times, and it is wonderful. This is actually the first year I have done any type of cards like this. Usually my Christmas cards, I have taken images and manipulated those on the cards and then decorated them. So this is kind of this card making that I see on YouTube is kind of interesting and fun to do. I'm going to start out with the faded jeans and the largest of my snowflake stamps, and I'm going to stamp over this randomly. I'm going to stamp over the edges, so I'm going to put a piece of scrap paper down just so I can save that. And I just want to stamp my snowflake image randomly. This is a personal preference, however you want to do it. And if it comes out a little light, that doesn't make any difference. We just want to lay in some dark background colors. And I'm stamping off the edge in some of the areas. And I want to take a baby wipe and wipe that off. I tend to forget and then mess up my ink pads. So I'm going to go now to the medium size snowflake, and I want a little bit more dark in there, so I'm going to be continuing with the faded jeans. And I want to overlap to a certain extent. You want these overlapping. And basically what you're doing is you're making your own paper. You're making your own design paper. This is just kind of a fun thing. And I think maybe a little bit darker in the center, maybe something right there. Okay, and now I'm going to take a baby wipe and clean that off, and I'm going to move now to my next color, which is the broken china. And I want to do some of these in the broken china. And forgive me if I move off camera, I'm still kind of new at doing these videos. So. And I'm standing up doing this, which I usually sit down to work, so who knows what we'll end up with here. And you want to start with your darker colors and build on top of it. The lighter doesn't always show on top of that dark, but that dark gives you a basis. It gives you a little bit more dimension when you're stamping. So I think that's enough with that color. I'm going to just give that a quick wipe and go to a smaller. I have one that's a little bit smaller, and then I've got a tiny one, and so I think I'm going to go with the smaller one and use the tumbled glass. And I'm just going to overlap this over some of the areas. Get them in the lighter spots so you see a change of your values of color in there. And we're going to cover all this, so if you make a mistake, it won't hurt a thing. So I think we have enough snowflakes on there now, so let me move this over to the side. And what we want to do now is ink the edges a little bit, and I'm going to use the darker faded jeans and just ink these edges. Just helps to pull that all together. Hope I'm in the camera here. Okay. And we'll set that aside. And what I want to do now is I want to add a little bit of color to our snowman. And we're going to start out this time with our lightest color, the tumbled glass. And I want to just add a soft, let's see if I can get here in the camera. I want just soft color around the edges, or I'm sorry, just blending into the inside area. We have that embossing, and that lightest color will just barely pick that up on those inside edges. Don't want it too dark in there. Okay. A little up here. And then I'm going to go from there to the broken china. And I want this darker around all the edges and bring it in just a little bit, but you don't want to totally cover all that previous layer. You want to give it a little bit of color, but you don't want to cover over what you've already put on there. So I'm going to just add this around. If you hear some little boofing in the background, that's my little Yorkie cricket. She gets in here when I'm working and usually has a golf ball that she pushes under something to get my attention and then barks for me to get it. She's got me fully trained now to retrieve all items. So next we're going to go with our darkest faded jeans, and we want this along the whole outside edge. And if you'll see from this original, that darkness around there is going to make that stand out against that, since you've got that white on white look. So we want to bring that in, and that and darken these edges. And I think I'll go back in. I need just a touch more of that tumbled glass in here in the center. And then I want to go through and ink those edges so we don't have that white showing. This is going to be covered anyway, but it still, excuse me, helps. And I still would like a little bit more of that tumbled glass worked up in there. Soften that and blend it out just a little. Okay, now we're ready for some more fun. Now we're ready to take your dryer sheet, and what you're going to do is you're going to lay it over there. I've trimmed a lot of the excess length off of it. But what we want to do is use a spray glue, which I use Elmer's Craft Bond spray adhesive. And what we're going to do is coat one side of the dryer sheet with the adhesive and then flip that over so that the sticky side will go down against our design paper. And what I do when I'm spraying inside is I have a little recycled box that I've got supplies in, and I'm going to lay that in there. And you'll want your dryer sheet, if it's real wrinkled, you'll want to smooth it out. And instead of getting out an iron and doing that, I use my Ranger heat gun and just heat it a little bit, and that will help straighten it out. But I'm going to give this a good coat of spray. And then lay this over my stamped paper and smooth it out. And if you do have some little wrinkles, that really it doesn't make any difference. It still makes it look like snowfall. And it takes a while for this to dry. It's really tacky. So what I'm going to do now while it's still wet is I'm going to add my glitter. And I'm using DecoArt's Glamour Dust. And this is in the crystal color. It's a white and has different little sparkles in it. It's a real fine glitter. And I'm just going to sprinkle this on and coat it real good. And since it does take a while for this to dry, you'll want to set this aside and don't shake off your glitter right away. You want to leave it on there and let that set up and dry. And after that dries, then you can trim your edges even with your paper. So that looks like a good coating everywhere. So I'm going to set that aside. And excuse me. Let that dry, and we want to do the same thing with the snowman. Now this is the side we're going to put down, so we want to flip it over and spray the glue on this side. So I'm going to set that back in there. And I hope you can see that. And then spray that real good. I'm running out of space here. Okay. And then gently lay that onto your image. And this part's a little tricky getting that in because that spray glue really sticks to your fingers. Stretch that on there and get it in place. Put his arm up there. Get it as smooth as you can.